All right. Welcome. I hope we all had a really good 4th. Per usual, we're going to start out with bucket fills and good things that are happening. So who wants to start?
I'm Jen Stecker, and I work with the Brahma team, and I'm a teacher, but I just got 2 offers accepted on vacation.
Woo! I just want you to know that the teacher just stood up and like took control and shared her story. I love that. All right, what else is good? Nothing's good right now. Anybody on Zoom have anything good?
Yeah.
Paigey.
I am still baffled by the changes that the whole organization is willing to make for us agents, and the ownership is, in my years at KW, they have shown to be the most loving, caring, and selfless people I've ever met. And I could never imagine a better group of leaders and that are always thinking of others instead of themselves. And I really do appreciate everyone in the leadership, with the Butler Group, our office, you, Heather, Katie, Lydia, Jim. You guys are all amazing, and I really I'm in wow, and I'm in love with you, all of you.
Oh, I needed that today, Paigey. All right, who else? Wendy.
Okay, so we got both our listings under contract. One pre-list over ask with Jelena, who's awesome. And then the other one was our big listing in Plymouth, went under contract on Thursday. So yay!
Awesome. Anyone from this side of the room?
The birthday boy.
Birthday boy.
July, I'll be celebrated it. So I had my first buying offer accepted.
Nice.
So it's the birthday present.
That's awesome. Nice work. All right, 2 more. We've got 2 more. I know we do.
I have one.
Who did that just come from?
It's Christine.
Okay, I was like,
so I have a bucket fill for Tanya Sample. We came across the challenge just last week in one of my offers for my client who's buying a house, and something came up from the past, and she got on the line with me and my client, walked through everything, talked through some options and plans, and then kind of just like saved this deal to keep it on the table, extending out the closing date. She also got onto the phone with the agent with me so we could talk through everything, talk through options. And I think it also speaks huge to like what Keller Williams is all about, because he was previously a Keller Williams agent and he's like, yep, win-win or no deal. He keeps saying that and kept the deal on the table. So all of her help was really appreciated.
all right, one last one.
Okay, I have one.
Oh, we end with Rick. Yay.
So Sherry had a listing in New Hope across the street from where she grew up and where she raised her kids, which is crazy, right? In her original neighborhood, and it went into multiple offers, and there was somewhere between 8 and 10 offers on it. There were two very, very good realtors in this office representing buyers, and Danielle won. And with an exceptional offer. And it's coming together, right? Yeah. Okay, so-
I think he was like, it's gonna work, right? Like, this is gonna be a.
Impressive young lady over here. That's a lot to win that, so.
Awesome.
This is actually the first time I'm working with another agent in our office, and I have to say it's been a great experience working with Sherry and her team. They have been very nice to me and helping me through this process. I appreciate you guys as well.
Nice job. All right. So today's going to be a little bit different. I think that it's halfway through the year, right? It feels like an entire year probably because the market's been insane. What I wanted to go over today, and I think it is useful for everyone. If you've been in the business for a long time, if you're newer in the business, is what are some things that worked really well in the first half of the year? And what are you going to continue doing, or what advice that you have for, hey, some of you that are really experienced are only doing the listing side, right? So you're not seeing some of the things that the buyer's agents are seeing. So I really want this to be an open discussion to be able to share what's working well and what you'd change or what you're seeing agents do that as a listing agent, you don't want to see them necessarily do, so that we can kind of just get better at what we're doing for the second half. Is that fair? In order for this to work though, we need participation. So I need people to speak, I need people to raise their hand, and I need people to share. Otherwise, we'll just sit here and stare at each other. I can draw some really cool stick figures, but that's not going to be helpful. So who wants to start? Awesome. And I'm going to take notes on this. I don't know how to best do this, Katie, so that they can see.
Marker.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Derek. You can see this, right? Okay.
So what came to light, was it last week maybe? Oh, what?
Hello.
Yeah, there.
It's a boxer, like.
Okay, we'll go with that. No, so Derek and I were talking, and I put in offers, lost offers, whatever, in thinking because of the teaching that I was putting them in exactly as like that. But we were talking, Derek mentioned, let's talk about how you can do that differently. And I told Derek, I said, I would never know a clunky offer or an offer that would look better than another because I'm not a listing. So
Okay.
I don't see them.
Yeah.
So I can't compare and contrast, but there are some things clearly
To what a good offer looks like.
like good ones. I just mean like.
Well, I mean, what a good or bad, like versus a bad, like what are things, okay.
I'm just saying you don't know what you don't know.
Okay. Let's talk about that a little bit.
So you have to use the word pristine. So
What's in a good offer?
oh, gosh.
What's in a good, we should qualify that though. What's in a good offer in this market? Because what's in a good offer in a different market could be that could be a whole different ballgame. So as a listing agent, anyone that's in that, what is a good offer right now, or what would you want to see?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Yeah.
Is it in the offer itself or how the offer is presented?
Yes.
It could be both though.
Yeah.
It could be a mix.
I was wondering.
So the presentation versus.
And you're
Like, let's do
over
two
the
sections.
price.
Good offer, like good offer written versus, okay?
I think putting it together so it's easy for the listing agent to receive as in one PDF. It shouldn't be 25 megs, and there's a way to make that happen.
Okay, so
Because
one,
if I can't open it on my stuff, or if it takes 5 minutes for my stuff to download the offer, you can guarantee that it's gonna be difficult when the client comes around to like trying to open it on their computer and stuff, so,
Can we add to that to not just send the AuthentiSign link?
right? Right.
No, that's like, that actually still happens.
Huge thing. Attaching a PDF, you know, I get plenty of offers with, a summary in the email body, and that certainly helps. Not sending personal letters, or maybe attaching the personal letter privately. If you choose to submit the personal letter, attach it separately so that I don't have to go in and filter out the stuff that isn't applicable. A personal pet peeve, maybe don't include your compensation disclosure or your buyer representation agreement with the offer either.
What does that communicate when that happens, Derek? Like, why don't you want that in there?
To me, it just says sloppy, like lazy, like not willing to take the time to create two separate signings, one for the representation contract and one for the.
I'm
for the
curious,
Purchase agreement itself.
why would there be a buyer representation while you're writing the offer? That's actually a question. Like, do we know the answer to that question?
It shows them they just started looking, which is never.
Not necessarily. They could have been looking at properties all along and you never had your buyer rep signed.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, I mean, I think that stuff is important, and I just, it's not that it necessarily makes a difference, but I think it's kind of cringeworthy when I'm digging through digging through multiple offers, or let's just say if there's 5 or 10 offers on a property, and I'm filtering through them to find which ones are the best. It's automatically putting things in my head, or ideas in my head about what the agent is doing or isn't doing, or how they're going to be through the rest of the transaction.
okay,
If it's a complete mess, and if the first thing I see is the arbitration disclosure, that just says like careless.
okay, so what is a good offer? What is an offer?
Order.
Yes, that's what the word would be. What is a good order to go in?
I'll let somebody else answer.
Purchase agreement on top.
I want to see what Derek says to this, because this is very, very consistent. I would not do it any other way. So the offer summary that Derek mentioned in the email is important. In my opinion, in the offer PDF, the very first thing needs to be a very beautiful offer summary. Because the agent may be sending those PDFs to the client without your email. Just make sure you got it covered in both areas. Okay, so it's offer summary. The next thing I think is most important is the address specific pre-qualification letter from the lender. If your lender can't do that, make sure that they give you a Word document, which you can do it on a Saturday at 10 p.m. before the 11 p.m. deadline or whatever. And then purchase agreement in order of the significance of the document is purchase agreement. And that every other supporting document. So you could do arbitration next. Then you would do well and septic if you have that next. And then the disclosures after that. Where is it? It's just on page 1. Because everything's done with, electronic transfer of trust funds. You mean you have a really old person writing a check? If you have a really old person writing a check.
Wait, what you're gonna say there? Because that's actually not ethical to talk about age.
Regardless of age.
That is a
check.
classified, it's like a protected class.
If you have someone in a protected class writing a check, then yes, that earnest money should probably be copied.
Really, Rick?
But that can come later, right? I mean, you don't need that.
Is the earnest money on the first page of the page?
Yeah. So you're saying offer summary, not just in the email, but as the first page? Absolutely.
So,
If someone asks if the offer summary shouldn't just be in an email, it should be on the first page, and I say absolutely yes, because that is the cover of your offer. That
what
is the
goes
clients
in an
see.
offer summary? I think that this is also important. What do you want to know that goes in an offer summary?
Something that's worked really well for me is, like everybody else has already said, but doing an offer summary, but I try to keep it brief in my email, and I say, I'm pleased to present this offer. Here's why my buyers are perfect for this, blah, blah, blah. And then I do the bullet points. It's purchase price, closing date, inspection, appraisal, home warranty. You know, whatever whatever the
Okay.
bullet points are.
Yep.
But that's it. That's the email, you know, I look forward to working with you.
Okay.
But I love Rick's idea, putting that also as a cover of the email.
Well, because I
Email
think
PDF.
to your point, the having it as a cover, if you're gonna send 5 offers, that means here's the terms on this one, here's the terms on this one, and they can just see them all on the first page. So if you have them all up on a screen, right? You're looking at them all at the same time, and it's easier to do apples to apples that way versus, okay, let me write my own notes.
And if, like what Rick's saying is, you know, if the listing agent is not necessarily just forwarding them on, right?
Yep.
But they're just receiving a bunch of PDF attachments and they open yours, and yours has that just easily laid out, because they don't really know when they're looking through a purchase agreement. They don't look at those every day, you know, to be able to see what the highlights are. I feel like that's brilliant.
So my question on that too is, what would be easier for a listing agent when naming a PDF, right? Because the PDF has a name on it. You download the PDF, that name is stuck on that already. Is there something that would be easier as you're going through multiple offers, right? That would be easier to help qualify which offer is which as a listing agent, or no, that doesn't matter?
Everything matters. I
Well,
think properly naming your attachment so that it says, you know, the address,
Yeah,
final PA, buyer last name.
yeah, I was gonna say buyer name or agent name.
Yeah, or something to identify it.
Scan name from the copy machine.
Right. And I mean, if you have lots of offers, it's pretty easy to get confused about what PDF you're looking at too. So I've had it before where agents have said, I'm glad you brought that up. I'm not sure I actually saw your offer. Which, I mean, that could happen to anybody
Mhm.
pretty easily, so.
I had a really quick note before we get too far away from it. With the offer suggestion thing, 2 things we throw on there is if our buyer is non-contingent, we note they're non-contingent on the sale of their home or anything. And if for closing date, if it is a flexible closing date, we put flexible right next to it, so I know that we can work with them on anything like that. Closing date, this, flexible. We will do whatever you want, please, just please.
So I love that idea. I was gonna just add to that, because this offer summary, so our offer summary, I'll just run through the 7 bullet points, just sort of simple. Purchase price, seller contributions should always come second because that adjusts the purchase price. Earnest money, closing date, inspection, financing, buyers, and personal property. So this is where what Jacob suggested is.
Buyers, like buyer's name?
Yeah, I just put a note, you know, great job, history, credit, you know, 2 young kids, something like that.
Aren't you a broker too?
Yes, I am, and I've never gotten in trouble ever. So then.
Yet, this is recorded.
So, okay, back to Jacob. So 2 other things that we do that could be very, very helpful in just the summary. It's very simple.
Oh, God, I just
But
can't.
when we say closing date, if it's flexible, it's flexible. So write flexible. When we say financing, we say 20% down conventional.
That's 8 bullet points, by the way. You said 7.
Bell Mortgage. Worked with Steve Sandell on 150 transactions closed on time, period. Okay, inspection. Work only with Jeff Carlson at Inspecta Homes, over 100 inspections done successfully, done.
Okay, so in this, you put who is
Just
gonna
one
be,
little bullet point who we work with.
okay?
Because as a listing agent, having that, to know that buyer's agent is because I want to call every single buyer's agent and say, oh, what sort of experience do you have with this lender? You know, what's this background? You know, it's Rocket Mortgage that your client just called yesterday, you know, so I don't want to go through that. If it's there, they don't ask. So get ahead of the curve.
Rick's right. If you're gonna do one thing for financing, it's saying that it's a preferred lender you've worked with a bunch of times. So that should be as important as anything else.
Okay. I just want to note something. If there's one thing that you post on social media about why someone should work with a good agent, we haven't even talked about what the actual offer is or the terms. And I'm running out of room on this piece. This would be a really good thing to talk about. Hey, I just masterminded about how you win an offer. And nothing actually had to really do with the offer just now. And we're not even done. Just a note in case you wanted more business. Yeah.
We're also including hello? We're also including if we have appraisal guarantee in our offers. In that summary, we have another bullet point in which we're including if we have an appraisal guarantee.
Guys, I don't know if my spelling's
Outside
on, but
that
we're not gonna judge
information,
that.
I always make sure I try to talk to the agent if possible, if they're.
Oh, like call them?
If they're a talker, yeah. And
Okay.
I will call them. If they're a talker, then I'll talk to them. If they prefer text, and they'll usually say in their voicemail, the best way to communicate with me is by text. So then I'll comply and send them a text. And then once I've sent the offer, I always make sure to give the agent a small bio about myself. If I don't know them, or if I've not run into them or recognize the name, or if they're not like immediately like friendly with me or whatever, I will say, I've been in the business a long time. You will not regret choosing to work with me to make sure this deal closes on time. And I don't know, I mean, I don't know that it does or doesn't work, but it certainly can't hurt.
So these two things seem no-brainer, but I have heard a lot of people just sending over an offer and then saying, hey, confirm you received this. Who are you? Did you show the property? Did you even ask any questions? And how did I know that there was an offer even coming in? Like, did you even send feedback, right? So, I mean, it goes all the way back to you showing the property and actually putting feedback that there's an offer coming in, right? I mean, if you just randomly get an offer in your inbox, what would you do as a listing agent? Like, who are you?
Speaking to that, on my first listing, we had over 35 offers. I had 5 phone calls.
Wow.
So
I went with one of them that made the phone call.
Accept one of those offers?
Yes, we did.
Yeah, so I can say this with absolute certainty. I have never in my career in 23 years presented an offer without calling the buyer or the listing agent ever. And I have never accepted an offer without talking to the buyer's agent on the phone. So usually it's the buyer's agent taking initiative and calling me because they're one of the top offers, but if they don't, then I'm definitely talking to them. So it changes the game entirely.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, Maureen.
Okay, so I had a question because I just had a listing that went under contract and my buyers actually won, but we almost lost the listing because I was representing both sides. But one of the things that I wanted to ask about was the whole CIC addendum with homeowners association, because I was getting, I had downloaded and provided all the HOA docs and the resale disclosure on the MLS. So other agents did have access to that before sending over a purchase agreement. So most of the offers that came in, they removed that contingency. When I talked to Jim, he said, you cannot remove that contingency, that is absolutely, you have to have that contingency there. You can only waive it after 3 days, but the 3 days have to be after a purchase agreement is submitted. So here I was, the listing agent and also the buyer's agent, and we almost lost because I had that contingency in place and all the other offers did not have that contingency in place.
You're talking about the review of the CIC documents? Well, you actually, from what I spoke to Jim, is that it's a state statute. You can't actually waive that. Like,
that's what he said. But all the other offers that came in, they did waive it. And so I had to go back and say to those other agents, you can't waive that. That has to be in there. And they wanted to argue with me about it and say, talk to my broker, we're waiving it. You provided the information in advance, we're waiving it. So my buyers had to have it in there because I had talked to Jim and he had said, make sure it's in there. And I had to just kind of cross my fingers that it was still going to be okay. And then after we ended up winning the negotiation, I had to then let my sellers know, listen, you have nothing to worry about because these are my buyers and they're not going to back out of this, and they will waive it after 3 days, I promise. But I couldn't tell them that when we were in negotiations because I was representing both sides. So I had to be very careful what I said. But I just wanted to know what everyone's take was on what they're
Rick has been prepped and ready for about 2
Yes.
minutes to tell you what he thinks.
Okay.
So I would like to provide some clarification, and this is information coming directly from both Jim and John Butler. This is a critical piece of information for people here today who are listening, because this is a big deal right now in our industry. And here's the clarification. CIC addendums, if you read them, they are for condominiums and townhouse complexes almost only. Please listen carefully, okay? Because there are single-family residential neighborhoods in very rare occasions, more often lately, and I'll explain why, that have registered to be designated as common interest communities. Those neighborhoods that are common interest communities, that are single-family neighborhoods with single-family houses, will be neighborhoods that also have townhouses or condos in the master association. So in our development in Maple Grove, that's got 2 swimming pools, got townhouses, has condos, and has single-family houses up to $1 million. They could have registered the entire master association as a CIC. In that case, then you have a CIC addendum that is required. Can you waive it? You cannot. Can you reduce it to 3 days? Yes, you can. Should you? Yes, you should. Okay? Just a second, Jelena. In most cases, however, where we're finding a lot of issues is there are probably 1,000 neighborhoods in Minnesota that have associations that are not common interest communities. And so in those cases, you can provide the association documents for the buyer if you want. You certainly don't need to. The agent can ask for them, but there is no common interest community amendment that's needed for those neighborhoods. Jelena.
I was just curious if you could sign the resale docs ahead of time and then technically waive it if you're agreeing to it on the front end, if they're provided for you.
It's 3 days after receipt of all documents. So once the receipt of all documents is in the hands of the buyer, that's when the clock starts ticking.
Regardless if you sign them or not.
That is correct.
Real quick, Rick, I had a clarifying question. So those things that they're in a common interest community, or they're in an association but they're not a common interest community, are those typically cases like they have a sign with the neighborhood in 1 yard, small things like that, or could it be anything?
It's a pretty big variety because there are, normally what you're gonna see is there's a $50 a year, $150 per year for the 2 monuments and maybe a kids park that was required. The city required them to put a kids park for green space in. And most often those neighborhoods, if there's no townhouses or condos, they are not a CIC. And that's where agents make a really big mistake, thinking that they either as a listing agent have to have a CIC addendum or as a buyer's agent. Now imagine the position you're putting your buyer in when you say, oh, we've got a right of rescission. You can't write.
Okay, so this is a really good question though. How as an agent do you know whether or not it's a registered CI, like a registered community or not?
You must talk to the association for absolute validation on that. It has to be, the association manager will be able to tell you pretty swiftly whether it's not, they registered, because it has to be registered as a CIC.
Doesn't
in order.
legal show CIC in the description? I don't think so. I don't know.
Okay, are two people?
The legal description, so show the CIC.
I got a condo the legal. CIC,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah.
Well, one thing for sure is if it does show CIC in the legal, then you are using the amendment.
So you're saying there's houses that probably don't have that.
Correct. Yeah, lots of them.
Okay, Maureen, do you have your hand raised?
Well, I was just gonna say the neighborhood I was in did not have townhouses or condos. It was just single family homes. And I had provided all the documents on the MLS in advance. And so the buyers had had the 3 days to review them and sign off on them and everything. And Jim had said, absolutely not. You have to have that in there. It has to be in there. So I didn't know, could we have something go out as an office that says, that clarifies this in writing or something?
I just wrote that note down, just a clarification on where to find if something's actually a CIC. So we'll shoot out an email either later today or tomorrow about clarification on that. Jeff.
It's really hard to tell. I've kind of looked through these and I've talked to some folks. There's no foolproof way other than probably talking to the state. So they have to be registered with the state. It's like chapter 515B, something like that, that registers them as a part of, was it McIowa or whatever it is, Minnesota Common Interest Community or whatever. And yes, correct. The days do not start counting until the purchase agreement is accepted, even if they're on the MLS. So I think there's been some varying discussion on that, but even if you post them on the MLS for 10 days, it doesn't count. So you can't assume that they've received it. So I would still, once an offer is accepted, I would put it in writing too. I'd email the listing agent, have it in writing saying, either send them to docs or say they are on the MLS, go ahead and pull them from there, just so you have record of telling them where to find them and that they have access to them. And then their 3-day clock starts, or 10. Depending on how you want to look at it.
Anything else regarding that?
CIC stuff or just in general?
Just CIC stuff, like to kind of wrap that piece up.
That was very helpful.
All right, so back to presentation. What have we forgotten on presentation, Derek?
So I think that the conversation was good, and I think we all have an understanding of what the law is or what the office's stance on that is. What do we do in Maureen's situation where she's the one who maybe is playing by the right rule and she's competing against 15 offers who are all playing by a different rule?
Okay, so what do you do in that situation? So she's buyer's agent, right? And what if the listing agent doesn't know the rule either? And then as a listing agent, would you be offended of someone being like, you don't know what you're talking about and this is the actual rule? And would that be helpful or hurtful to?
I think we know if it's our listing, we can inform the seller as such. If it's not our listing, then I think that's where we're in a spot where as a buyer agent, you can tell the listing how it should be. And I'm assuming that your offer is going to the bottom of the pile, if it's in the pile.
Okay.
In my mind, and this is just spitballing, so take this with a grain of salt. In my mind, what I would do is in that like first page where you talk about all the terms of the offer, I would say something to the effect of 3-day CAC thing as required by state law, something like that, where you're saying this is required. You're not telling them whether they know or they don't know. You're saying this is required and just specifying like, I know, I am aware. And you can even specify in the phone call, like, hey, this is something like, you don't have to be like, you don't know what you're talking about. I am doing this because this is what my broker has told me in regards to compliance that I have to do. I want you to know that our buyers are competitive, that we're here to negotiate. We're going to keep that there because we have to legally, from what I know from my broker. Don't say their broker, don't say that, but just like on my side, this is what I know and I'm aware of, and this is what I'm doing. And honestly, I feel like developing that relationship with a listing agent can overcome those hurdles some of the time. Obviously, when you're talking 20, 30, 40 offers, it's a bit different, but if there's 5, 6 offers on a property and you are the one in relation, even telling them like, trying to negotiate with them and saying, hey, my buyers, we want this house. We're willing to compete. If you show up as the agent they like the most, odds are you can probably get to a point where you can work it out with them, because they want to work with you and they want to work with good agents. And as long as your clients are still bringing something competitive and they're matching prices or anything, or not quite, because it's a conversation of, well, maybe we can kind of get it this way if you happen to go around here, because nobody actually wants to say anything. But even we had a house we won out this week that was multiple offers and we were the lower offer, but then showed up and communicated and they're like, okay, well, here's roughly what you need to do to to the point where we're gonna accept your offer, because I want to work with you anyway. So establishing that relationship is, I mean, it's a key component. I think it's the most important thing. Is if 5 out of 20 agents call and you're in the top 2 of those 5 agents, then you just gotta beat one guy. That's it, beat one guy, you know? That's what the numbers come down to when you're really getting to the end of that and you're showing up.
So that's also important. So when you talk about establishing a relationship, as an agent, what are you doing not just in an offer, but what are we doing on a daily basis to establish relationships with other agents, not necessarily just here, but in other offices? Are we going to things like broker opens? Are we, you know, calling other agents and just saying, hey, I'm just curious, what are you seeing in the market? Like, are we actually in relationship with other agents that aren't just at Keller? And that's an actual question. And I'd love to know what you're doing, because I think that's the biggest advantage for any agent, is to know other agents and also always be in communication with them.
So Sherry and I just talked about this like 2 days ago. Going to different events in which other agents are there is great. And at all times, this is great. We have 2 team members here. At all times, we act with the highest level of professionalism that we can in those environments. That changes the game, because we've had other agents who have not acted professionally in social environments. It's particularly language, just the discussions, the things that you talk about, those sorts of things. You know, we're free and we're individual, independent agents here. We kind of run, well, the admin doesn't like to know that we do everything on our own, right? I mean, we're like running free rogue agents here, right? At the same time, you know, so it's a little bit easier to say, I'm just going to be free. I'm going to go back to when I used to be working with carpenters and say whatever I wanted to say, swear now and then, whatever, just in public. But I'm just, you know, one of the things that we talked about and it has affected us is when other agents have been relatively appropriate professionally. And we're like, wow, that is really different. So next time we come across that agent, we know something about them. That's a little bit uncomfortable. So
Thanks, Rick, for telling on me.
I think one of the things that I've had as the listing side that I just known is.
Can you guys hear Kevin on Zoom?
Yeah.
One of the things that I found really great is, you know, as listing agents, if we're getting multiple offers that that we're not able to accept, right? But that person calls you afterwards and says something like, thanks for considering my offer. And then you have that other listing and you see that name come again. You know, oh, I missed the opportunity to work with this person here, but now I'm going to work with them there. I think how we show up for the offers we don't get is as important as how we show up for the offers that we do.
Well, I think that's a great point too, is don't leave them hanging, right? Because you know that buyer's agent is getting just text and called and what's going on with our offer. If you've done something and are now negotiating or accepted another offer, don't leave those other offers just out there where they have to completely keep calling and saying what's going on with their offer. Make sure that you're respectful enough and tell them, hey, we're working with this other offer. We'll let you know if anything, you know, happens with it or whatnot. But I think there's too many times where we get really busy and then we forget that someone else is actually waiting for that. And it's not just the agent, it's the buyers or whoever else is in play. Derek.
Maybe think about too, when your relationship with any of these agents actually starts, and it might be when you submit the offer, or if you go further back, it may have been when you showed their listing like 3 months ago or 6 months ago or a year ago, and how you showed up then. And that's why I think it's really important to always submit feedback really quickly anytime you do a showing, because as a listing agent, I know I love seeing it, and I know that sellers love seeing it. Even in a really hot market, it's great to know exactly what people think of your home as soon as they see it. And I think that plays into the relationship with other agents. And you know, I just had an example where I showed a house on a Saturday and submitted feedback on my way to the next house, and the agent reached out to me, you know, within an hour and thanked me for the great feedback. And even though it's not the one, we went back, or she brought me back. I didn't recognize her name, but she brought me back to a great transaction we had like 5 years ago. And we talked about other houses and a listing she's got coming on, and like, so there's still a relationship there. And it didn't work on the house she had listed. It didn't work on the other property we talked about. And I know that if we ever get into a situation where I'm competing on one of her listings, I'm in the top 20% without having to do anything, or should be.
Anybody have anything to add on that?
Super quick, there's another thing that's happening right now. Imagine that Wendy lists a house in, where was it, Maple Grove? Where's the house? Plymouth, okay, Plymouth at $800,000, and she gets 6 offers on that property. 5 of those people, which because it was Kevin gave her advice to be nice to those agents, those other 5 agents have buyers who didn't get that house. Now the Brahma Real Estate Group lists another house at 800,000 in Plymouth, and same school district. And was Wendy going to provide the list of those agents? And she's already got a good relationship with them. Not only that, but she's going to say, hey, this Kevin, he was the best agent out of these other guys who didn't win. Give them a call. They got a great buyer. I mean, we're going to put these deals together because of all these multiple offers and those buyers that we're now aware of.
Awesome. Maureen.
I was going to say, I know this is kind of a passive way of developing relationships with agents and other offices, but I've noticed a lot of positive feedback by having responding and liking to, people's posts on Instagram and commenting on them and doing those sorts of things. There are a lot of agents that I feel like I know really well, even though I have never met them in person, and they've reached out and they were reaching out when I had my listing, things like that. I feel like that's another way you can develop a rapport.
Awesome. Paigey.
Yeah, and well, we talked about giving establishing a relationship at the beginning with the feedback, and I will tell you, be honest with those feedbacks. Be nice, but be honest. Because just recently I took a client and I submit feedback as soon as I'm done with my day with showings. I don't let it go. But I submitted a feedback to an agent saying that my client loved your house, but she knows that there's going to be a lot of offers, and she just does not want to get into that situation. So we're going to offer on a different house. That agent and that seller called and said, give us an offer and we'll get back to you right away. And within 2 hours, I had an offer accepted. And the house never went into multiples.
Wow.
So relationship with that agent started then. I call every agent regardless, and I ask them, what is important to your seller? And reiterate in my offer summary, everything, saying that if you see anything that we could do to make our offer better and better than my competition, please let me know. I'm allowing them to come back to me, and they do when they see somebody that's willing to work on a win-win situation.
Awesome. So we have about 13 minutes. What else do you guys have on presentation? Anything else to add on this side? Phone call's huge. Offer summary is a big deal. Yeah, so what I didn't hear in this is the letter. Is that even a thing anymore? And
keep it separate. That, I agree that, you know, Derek doesn't like it, I understand. Keep it separate is very important. That's what we've been recommended, right, by our broker, Jim.
Yep.
And we just won one only because of the letter last week only. He's a disabled vet and the seller just happened to be a military family that maybe we noticed that, but you know what, they connected. It had nothing to do with us. The letter got submitted separately and they basically told us, you know, this is why we accepted your offer, period. And I just heard from somebody else about an hour ago that she presented an offer and because of the letter, the seller responded and accepted their offer. So we cannot avoid the fact that, and this is what I think is most fascinating, there still is significant emotion in this business. There still are human beings needing to interact with human beings and socially get along with each other in order for these transactions to work out. We've now complicated the market significantly with the aggressive nature of offers in a short period of time. So the emotional aspect of it becomes more important. So one other little detail, and I know this is a detail, but we don't ever submit an offer without doing this as well. I never submit an offer without the print in the offer being blue. It should not be black, and it should not be the old typeset from the 1940s. So change it to Helvetica, change it to blue. So when any agent is looking through 15 offers, and they're looking through yours, or their clients are, they're looking at the stuff that has been added to the purchase agreement. That's just a recommendation. It's a little detail, but if you want to, you know, do it right.
I get super annoyed with the old typeset. I always have to change. I feel like that's a personal thing. But
Am I the only person that likes to get an email that has like a clickable phone number?
oh,
So if,
okay.
if your email signature is a picture that has your team and doesn't have a phone number that I can click on in my phone, like that's annoying to me. And it. So, I was gonna suggest as I'm hurtling down 494, right? Like if I can just click the phone number and be done and I'm on my hands free and having the conversation.
I'm thinking on a scooter in Thailand.
So I think that, I mean, what you're saying is make it easy for the listing agent, right? Because you have your buyer, your thing that you're wanting them to see, right? There are 10 plus other people that are doing the exact same thing all at the same time. And whoever makes it easiest for that listing agent is most likely going to win, right? Or at least going to get the first call or the first communication to say, how can we make this work? Because you already made my life easier. You tried. Like you put effort in. You didn't just sling over a purchase agreement with no thought in process or the fact of talking to the listing agent.
I'm not saying don't make stuff look nice. I'm just saying consider where somebody might be using whatever you're presenting.
I think that's also a really good point though, is a lot of listing agents are listing agents for a reason, right? They've put in time on other places and they're usually wherever, right? So then they're like, I'm looking at this, 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 and this. And if it's not in that order, I'm not going to rearrange it for anybody. Like, let's just say you're on vacation. That doesn't come in the right order. Do you think a listing agent is going to take that, put it in some, doc hub, rearrange it so that their seller can see it? Absolutely not. That seller will probably not see that offer right or wrong. Or it's going to be at the bottom of a pile saying, here, we got to look through this, but it was really written bad. And then the seller's not going to look at it. It might be given to them, obviously, because we have to as agents, but the seller's going to be like, I don't know how to look through that.
I have a new person question.
Chris has a new person question.
You have to show your sellers every single offer
Yes.
that comes through?
Yes.
Okay, so what you said, you didn't mean it?
I didn't mean that.
Okay.
me. What did you say? I missed
Well,
it.
I actually, it's not,
Started the paragraph with versus what you ended.
but ethically, yes, but I'm gonna say that there are some unethical people out there, right? As in any industry. And so therefore, do we know that that happens in every agent's lives or business? Not necessarily. Ethically, yes, you're supposed to do that and it's a rule. Do we know if that completely happens? We don't.
I think what does happen, Katie, is what you said on the other side is, hey, I'll send you these offers, these three. This one was a total disaster. This
Yeah.
one looks really good. Well, if I get that from my agent, right, who is advising me, looking out as my fiduciary, then what I want to do is spend the time on, hey, there are really 2 or 3 offers that we need to be looking at. So you want to make sure you're one of those 2 or 3 offers that we got to look at.
Right, they're all sent. They're all sent to you, right? You've got all 20 offers, but as what your seller's most likely to say is, hey, rank these, or tell me what's the top 3 we have to look at. All 20 sent, but you've got 1, 2, 3, and that one might be at, number 20 PDF.
The other thing, just as we're coming towards the end of it, the other piece that I want to talk, especially if you're kind of just getting started in real estate, is this conversation about how we're submitting offers and how we are waiving appraisal, how we're doing some of that kind of stuff, is not typical over the long range. Right now, we're in a spot that's kind of weird. In fact, a year ago, even people were still asking for closing costs of 3% and different things. So if you're at a spot where you're going, man, I'm doing these buyers, and I'm not getting anything accepted, know that for such a time as this, right, that the real estate market changes and things could be on the other side. Does it make sense to focus on listings? Always, no matter what, focusing on listings is a good strategy, but things will change. And then as listing agents, I think one of the things that we can see sometimes is there can be arrogance or different things. And the things I would say to all of our listing agents is, let's be nice, right? Let's make sure that we do what Katie said and do communicate with, hey, thank you so much for submitting the offer. Here are some things, and sometimes they'll say, well, is there anything that could have made it better? Well, if we can be that resource out there and just making our industry better, that's a good thing, right? Whether they're with our brokerage or some other brokerage or whatever, if we're just playing nice in the sandbox, it's going to be rewarding in the long term.
Absolutely. All right, we've got 6 minutes. I want to talk about our listing contest and everyone that was in that. Is there any, we didn't even get to this side. We can at a later date. So 2 things. 1, did we find this helpful? Yeah, we like that kind of, yes. Anyone on Zoom, did you find this helpful?
Yes.
Yes, for sure.
All right, so we can do this again as well. We can send some of this stuff out if you guys didn't take notes. And then 2, I just want to say thank you for participating, because that's what makes this all kind of work in the end. See, it's a boxer, just so that you know, as you're like, what is that in the background?
He looks like a potter, like he's making a bowl or something.
You guys, I'm just, they're frustrating me here in the meeting. And 2, if you ever have questions on any of this, I think that any of our listing agents or veteran agents would obviously want to help, right? I mean, they can, if you have a question about a specific topic, maybe I shouldn't speak for them, but would you be willing to help somebody in a situation as they're writing an offer? Hopefully, yes.
Yes.
Jacob's like, the Zurichs will. All right, so you guys, our goal was 70 listings. We got 72 listings last month. We've got 42 agents that made it for the invite to the boat, and 10 admins that got invited to the boat as well. So nice work. From that, I want to just know, is that motivating for you guys? Is that something that's like, I want to get on that, and made you get a listing that you might not have gotten before?
Yes.
Yes?
Oh.
So anytime that you guys have ideas of something to motivate you, just let me know. I mean, obviously this is great for the summer, but as we go into the fall and winter months, we'd love to be able to, you know, have some sort of reward for you guys. So congratulations to everyone that is invited and coming on to that. So this Friday, you guys, I cannot stress enough how competitive I am. Like, I can't stress enough. Okay. So every year I was at the Lakes office, we won this tournament to the point where like it was blood, sweat, and tears. Okay. So they're going to bring their A game. Edina's going to bring their A game because Matt talks a lot of smack. And then there's Otsego, who might just be that like sleeper. They might be totally sandbagging. So who's going to be there this Friday? Who is committed to Friday's kickball game already? Okay, this is not what I want to see right now. All right. Like, we need players and we need competitive players to play in this game. Because if not, okay, even if we then just kick it really far and you'll be good because no one can catch those balls. If you're not there, at least come to cheer on. If you have a spouse partner that can play kickball, invite them. Like, I'm like ready to just bribe everybody to come and play this game. So it's Friday night, 6 to 8. It's going to be at Kenwood Park. I'd love to get more people there. If not, I will be walking off with all the people that do show up with our tail between our legs, because I think we have 8 players and we need at least 10. So, and then I just want you to know, we'll be the one office in the Butler group that lost the kickball tournament. And I'll let that just sit there.
What did you say?
We'll be the one Butler group like office that lost the kickball tournament. No one wants that. Nobody wants that. Trust me, you guys don't want that. All right, wants and needs. Who's got some? I do. I need some kickball players for Friday night.
That's great.
Anybody else?
So we're taking photos on Friday at 5821 Oliver Avenue in Minneapolis. It'll be on at 5:25. We're going to do pre-market showings next week. So it's 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. It's a really awesome upper level master suite, really private backyard, prime Armitage, Kinney location. So we're going to do showings Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week before we go live. Really wants to come through pre-market.
Awesome. Anybody else? Buyers, listings. All right, if we don't, make sure to send them to Lydia if you just don't want to say them out loud, and she can send out an email later on today. Wendy has
Actually,
one.
Yes, we do have one. Maddie's grandmother has a townhome in Edina in 9 Mile Village that will be coming on soon. Hopefully by the 16th. Yes, hopefully by the 16th. 2 bed, 2 bath. I don't know how many square feet.
The 1 level living.
It is not 1 level living.
It's just a little over 1,000 square feet.
We'll practice your facial expressions while you say that to other agents. It is not 1 level living, and I'm not sure. All right, guys.
It's a
It's
split
12
level
o'clock.
entry.
It's what?
Split level entry.
Awesome. All right. Have a good week. Let me know if you have any other questions, and we'll get the CIC stuff out to you as well.
Thank you.